commercial real estate is such a slow adopter of technology. If we think about the OCR technology, right, optical character recognition, it's been around since the mid-70s. And there are companies that will have a picture of their lease agreements, but they've not run it through an OCR engine to actually digitize. So there's such a long road before they can apply any sort of AI stuff. Commercial real estate companies who will start thinking of themselves as data businesses will be successful.
Hi Karen, welcome to Built to Perform podcast. Thank you for coming on today.
Hello, and thanks for having me.
What I'd like to do is really just dive straight in there with who are you and why do you do what you do?
So I'm Karen. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called FYMA. We use existing security cameras that are already in buildings. We tap into the video feed that comes out of those cameras and analyze it with AI, telling you how your building is operating, how many people are here. We've just launched a really cool feature set that allows you to drill down to like a chair level. And in gyms, for example, that allows you to figure out whether your treadmills are being used, whether your free weights area needs upgrading or downgrading, depending on how much it's used. We have the first week's worth of data in actually from a gym. It's from a co-working space in London. Their free weights area is utilized every day, nearly every hour even. And the 2 rowing machines haven't been touched once in 7 days. So very clear way of, okay, let's take them out and expand this for a bit. So that sort of stuff is what you can do with the data that we provide. Our AI has never seen a human face. And why we do it is FYMA started actually out as a consultancy, and we did all sorts of AI applications. I've been in the field for 10 years, which is, way before anybody knew what an LLM was or before they even existed. And we wanted to get away from people installing 1 million dumb sensors that don't get smarter over time, and help them use the technology they already have and make it smarter and just quicker to use and install. So it all came from that kind of idea of let's make AI just simpler, easier to use, easy and quick to deploy. And we try to get away from all the jargon as well. Because again, if you rewind 5 years, maybe 6 years even, AI was expensive. Like all the big companies were doing it. Apple did it, IBM did it, Microsoft did it, but it wasn't really just something that you could buy off the shelf. It's really changed, and we wanted to be there in the beginning and just really demystify AI as such. So we've always tried to sell analytics and usage analytics over AI and computer vision.
Really interesting. And so obviously demystifying AI and bringing AI into the market, is that why you're doing what you're doing, or how did you get into that? Because obviously looking at your background, and we spoke off camera about your background in terms of it's been quite wide ranging. Why commercial real estate, and in particular, why commercial real estate and CCTV AI?
I've been in tech now since 2006 when I started with British Telecom. So it's quite a while. Dare I say it, 19 years? Oh my God. And I did 1.5 years out of the tech world and worked in film and television, but I've been in tech kind of since. In the very beginning, I was more ops, finance, that sort of stuff. And then from 2014 onwards, the past 10, 11 years, I've been doing business development basically and helping different kinds of innovative products go to market. Why this specific field? So computer vision, so when we did the consulting business, we tried to work with anybody that had enough data to do AI on, because that's something that you really, really needed. And with the application that we had developed for a city, where we used existing security cameras just to figure out traffic flows and what the kind of potential carbon footprint is of a junction, we realized that there's 600 plus million cameras worldwide at that time. It's probably doubled by now since COVID. And nobody really uses that kind of data unless something happened, and then you rewind the footage and see kind of what happened. So we thought that why not take this into real estate in an operational capacity, not in a security or law enforcement capacity, and really help the world along post-COVID, because we knew that patterns are going to change. Are we all going to go back? Human-centric design needs data to operate in. And I think a lot of people are very emotional about their environment, right? Whether it's the office environment, home environment, or the city they live in. I am too. So putting that sort of data to a good use in terms of redesign and operational management of the spaces that we inhabit is just something that seemed a very logical thing to do. So that's kind of why I'm in there and not doing very techie or defense or any of the other stuff that we could be doing with computer vision.
And so FYMA is an evolution then from consultancy to now what it is today, which is its own standalone AI and reporting solution, I guess. Is that the best way to describe it? Yeah.
So the consulting business, we completely shut down. We did everything from time series prediction, sentiment analysis, predictive maintenance on a tenant port, like all sorts of stuff. Tried to detect fraudulent applications for iPhone, a lot of people would drop their iPhone right before a new model would come out. Then you're trying to figure out if it was legit or not. We worked with a couple of media companies, just anywhere where you could have enough data. And then one of those ideas and projects that we had, we then spun into a completely new business, which is now FYMA.
Specifically, the problem it's solving for commercial real estate landlords, what is that problem?
Essentially, what FYMA is solving for is how many people are in my building, what's happening in my building. So very often, I was quite surprised in the beginning, lots of landlords are blind to how many people are in the building, or they'll know how many people came in, but not when they left. Tenants don't always share what happens in the tenant realm and how many people they have showing up. So you're trying to figure out, how much do I staff for? Am I really busy on Mondays versus Wednesdays? How big's that delta? If somebody's not consistently having tenants turn up, do you have to worry that they're going to churn as a tenant? Do I have to already plan for that? So it's just desire to figure out what's happening in my building and the lack of data within buildings. The second problem that we're solving is just access to that data. So very often you'll have to install sensor technology. Sensors don't work if you've got a bit of a weird space. If the ceilings are really high or doorways are very wide, or you have both indoor and outdoor spaces kind of intermingled, computer vision is very logical and works really well in those kinds of complex environments, and the camera's already there. So we kind of take away the pain of having to procure an entire hardware solution, test it for accuracy, and then install it as well, because that whole process could take a year. We can go live in 20 minutes anywhere remotely in the world. So speed, quality of data, and the data itself. So often with AI, you need data to even, figure something out of that data. So we help landlords generate data out of the buildings that they can then use to query to figure out what's happening in the space.
Yeah. So I think that's quite an interesting point as well, because the data is actually already there. It's just not being utilized in a way which is usable, right?
Yeah. So data is not always there. So my point is that we, rather than taking disparate data sets that commercial real estate companies may have that are often not even digitalized, right?
Yep.
We generate data for them, proprietary data that all belongs to them, that they can then take as a data set. And if they want to create their own LLM, dump it in there and ask, I've got an office building in Clerkenwell, another one in Toronto. What's been happening in here in the last 2 months?
Yeah, and what I mean by that though is the data is there in the form of a camera feed, right? It's already sat there. It's just not being utilized. It's not creating a data layer for
value.
A landlord.
It's just not creating value.
I think that's what's really quite exciting about it is it's utilizing what's existing in a cost-effective way to then capture and create data which is then usable and actionable, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
On that and data, I think it's worthwhile talking about, because it's an emotive subject, right? Is data and CCTV, AI, those three things put together can scare people, right?
Yeah, of course.
Can you just explain how you go about resolving those fears which come with that, in with GDPR and all those other different concerns which a landlord will have and tenants will have around how that data is captured and used?
Yeah, of course. So we started the company, well, obviously in a European space that's governed by GDPR and the equivalent legal framework within the UK. Yep. So we set out from the very beginning not to do facial detection gate detection, any personally identifiable information detection. We don't save any video footage. So if you imagine a FYMA being like a sieve, the video feed passes through it. It's not saved, and only the metadata is kept. There's nothing to rewind. There's no phases to really look at, and the detections happen really, really quickly, and then the video data is deleted. The way detections work with an AI model that we have is it looks at your hand, torso, leg. It doesn't look at anything above a neck, so that the model's not been trained in that way. It never kind of captures a human face or anything above the neck. So that means that even if somebody's partially passing through the frame, we'll know that it's a human being, we'll count them. So similarly with vehicles, if we just see a wheel or a windshield, we'll know that it's a vehicle. So that kind of safeguards against it. All the data belongs to the clients, not to us. So we don't kind of license it out to them, like it's the client's data. And we have placed our servers in Frankfurt in Germany. So we work with Google and AWS both, because Germany has been one of the strictest adopters of GDPR. So we decided to put our money where our mouth is and stick all of our processing in there.
Yeah, I think an interesting viewpoint on that as well, and with regards to how you're capturing that data, I think people do get quite emotive about it, and being able to explain that in a very logical way to them, exactly how that's going to be captured, how it's going to be looked at and not retained is really important. In terms of the planned space, obviously you said it was an evolution. So when did you decide that actually commercial real estate was a route forward for FYMA?
Just quickly on the previous question as well. So sometimes in a deployment, we don't go to tenant spaces and we don't go to meeting rooms and really small spaces like that. Again, because there's a comfort level that the people will have with camera technology. And in that case, a hybrid solution where you have a sensor technology deployed in a space like that, and FYMA in public areas, mixed use areas, more complex spaces, probably make most sense. So how FYMA got involved in commercial real estate space, or how we kind of started out. So the very first application, like I mentioned, was for a city and to try and figure out what's going on in a junction. They also were using sensors. One sensor could only figure out what's happening on one lane of traffic. We didn't look at pavements, and the sensors were able to, that place still uses them, that city still uses them. They would look at short vehicle, long vehicle, and could only really determine car, bus, and truck, maybe a motorcycle. So we do car, bus, truck, motorcycle, e-scooter, tractor, human. We have separate micromobility models, so we can look at how many cargo bikes are in a city, for example. If a client needs a specific deployment, we'll create it for them in the space of like a day or two. So we can look at a lot richer data set. We launched the company into COVID. So we properly launched like early 2020, and everywhere where we wanted to go live, which was public domain, was completely devoid basically of people. So it was pretty difficult to do any sort of light testing. So we spent 2 years and a bit more even on proper R&D, got our patent sorted, brought the own costs down a lot. So when we started out, just paying for GPU resource was 250 euros per camera feed. And that was not something you could sell to a customer and have a markup on it, right? So we were able to bring it down significantly. So a lot of that kind of work was going on. You also realized at some point that selling into public spaces where we would be very useful for a local government authority. Like, let's say I live in Cambridge, they've put in a scheme near where I live where a bridge has recently been closed to kind of car traffic. So only taxis and buses can go over it. Huge debate in the local community about whether that's good for business, bad for business. Is it more pedestrians now or not? You could just deploy us for a month. Have a look. It's really cheap and you'll know. And then you can go to your next election cycle with data. But going back to data and public spaces and environments, it's very emotional and very, very politicized. And we realized very quickly that it's just our runway is not long enough to have debates with local authority politicians. So we completely pulled out of any sort of analytics that happen in roads or kind of public areas, and switched into commercial real estate, because that's where the demand started coming from, basically.
And you're talking about AI and FYMA. What, for people listening and watching, there's obviously different levels of AI, and it'd be great for you to explain that to us in a layperson's term, because I know you've got the ability much better than I do to do that, because I'm the layperson. And then also what FYMA actually uses as well, and how that works. Not asking for IP though.
No. I think when we talk about AI now, most people mean ChatGPT or Claude or some other large language model. So they've kind of blended into the same term. AI is a much broader term as such. I actually really recommend, if somebody's interested, in a book called, it's by Michael Wooldridge. He's a professor at Oxford University in AI and maths. And he has written a book about the history of artificial intelligence. And it's fantastic, just to get to grips to where the term came from and, how long have we been in the field.
Quite a surprisingly long time, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, computer vision as such was first launched as a field of research in 1954, which is a long time ago now. And scientists were trying to figure out how cats see, like, is it blended edges, sharp edges, and how do we then figure out how to make a computer also see. So that's, it's evolved in different ways, but thanks to LLMs, it's just accelerated, and people kind of, now query what is AI and what does it mean. There are AI systems, obviously. There's machine learning that's been around for a long, long time. There's agentic AI that we now talk about. There's also automation. So I often find that people confuse what is automation with AI. So that gets blended in. Automation is when you manually create the sequence and then basically let that run automated. For truly agentic AI, there's a company, for example, out of Estonia. They have agents that work alongside your procurement team that have their own budget. Right? So that's an agent that can go and negotiate contracts within a limited scope. And that's truly agentic AI, which I don't think are seeing in the world really yet properly. So it kind of started from that narrow field, and then it's now kind of moving up. It's a funny one. So a lot of AI people or practitioners don't use the word AI. We would use big data, machine learning, computer vision. Like, you'll talk specifically about the type of AI you're building or working with, rather than using just the term AI. Yeah.
And so you're utilizing computer vision.
We're utilizing computer vision. We're also starting to use a little bit of, when first ChatGPT launched, we had FYMA GPT. So you could go and query anything about your data, but people didn't know what to ask. It was really interesting in the beginning when that was just an empty box. And it was like, what do I ask? I think now it would be a lot easier. We're trying to get LLMs to summarize data in a reporting. So basically you log in and you have an executive summary instead of having to look at 5 pie charts and line graphs and so forth. We're also looking at VLM, so that's visual language models, which can interpret both text and image and the correlation between both of them. So currently LLMs are really good at text, but not so good at doing both images and text and reasoning within that space. So that's something that we're starting to look at.
Yeah.
Specifically for commercial real estate.
Yeah. And on commercial real estate, where would you say AI is and where it's headed as well? Because typically we're a little bit slower.
I don't think AI is really anywhere beyond a ChatGPT Claude type setup, maybe for marketing. Commercial real estate is such a slow adopter of technology. So if we think about the OCR technology, right, optical character recognition, it's been around since the mid-70s, 50 years. And there are companies that will have a picture of their lease agreements, but they've not run it through an OCR engine to actually digitize the content of that lease agreement. To then be able to put that into a system and query it. So there's such a long road in a lot of these companies to truly digitize themselves before they can apply any sort of AI stuff over it. And rubbish goes in, rubbish comes out. That's kind of the way. So where I've seen commercial real estate do well is where there's one large UK company that has given data guardianship roles to various basically individuals, all the way from CEO down. They're either data guardians, data I can't remember all the terms, but everybody has like a specific role. Either they look at governance, they look at how to better share it, they look at privacy, they look at ethics, and then because they're cross-functional, they're able to now bring a lot of that different knowledge together into working groups and figure out how to make more of their data. And I think those kinds of companies will be successful. And there's another one of our clients in Canada that's working at creating a proper pan-company data lake with every single possible data source going into it, to then start querying it with AI and trying to figure out, are there any anomalies anywhere? Everything from leases to occupancy to staffing, you name it, like what is happening in my organization. But they've been I think they've been doing that for about 2 years, just trying to get all of that data into a format where it's even queryable. And they're a massive company. They have over $70 billion worth of assets under management. So they have the resource to do that kind of work. Commercial real estate companies who will start thinking of themselves as data businesses will be successful. Nike has said for years that we're a data company. They don't say that we're like a retail business or just a shoemaker. They're in the business of data about how you buy, how you perform, how you run, and then they build a product to match that. So I think that shift in thinking really still needs to happen. Yeah,
I'm seeing green shoots of that, but going back onto the AI part in commercial real estate and probably outside of the sector as well, and kind of what you said earlier is people in the AI field, they'll talk about their specific AIs, but there's a bit of cloak and dagger, not cloak and dagger, but grayness to some people claiming to be AI when the reality is their products aren't actually utilizing AI as well, which is something we've got to be quite wary of as well at this point in time. Yeah, so this is going to the time before we launched FYMA proper, but we used to do due diligence for a European venture capital fund. And out of 8 companies, 6 did not have any IP that would kind of hold up. We have proprietary AI. They didn't have any. And yeah, you're right. A lot of companies probably don't have it. That being said, if somebody repackages an LLM and kind of tweaks it, trains it, or uses it, or builds something with, I don't know, Lovable, and people use it and it brings value, I think it's fair. Like it's a fair use case. So their IP would be, rather than creating something, I don't know. So I've got a law diploma. So rather than creating something completely unique and patentable, they've created a useful model, for example. So they've taken something that exists and put it into either a better use or a novel use, for example. But yeah, there's a lot of we both go to a lot of these prop tech conferences, right? And you look at the panel and it's full of AI people or topic is AI. And you know that everybody has bought that seat for themselves to be on that panel, and they're not industry experts. And I've heard all sorts of absolute just rubbish being spoken from stage that's just not factually true. And then you're like, I mean, come on, just some conference organizers need to really do a better job at getting like actual practitioners on stage rather than just PR people who are trying to sell themselves an AI company when they're not. Yeah, I think, and that's doing AI in the industry a disservice and has caused, I think, a level of distrust, right? Yeah. And your company might be utilizing automations. Just be honest about that. That's if it's still doing a good thing and it's adding value and it's bringing something. You don't need to jump on the AI bandwagon and say we're utilizing AI. Yeah. And be honest about it. If you're using machine learning, talk about machine learning. Let's actually inform people about the technologies which are being implemented rather than trying to put it all underneath this AI banner because it's exciting and shiny object at the moment, right?
Yeah, absolutely agree. So there's a mom at so I've got two daughters, and the younger one of the mums from that school works for a pharma company in Cambridge, and she's a data scientist, and she did kind of sigh at me and say, oh, all the management people want AI this, AI that, then we can just use a good Bayesian model, and it's quicker, easier, and cheaper to run. So it's not a panacea for everything. I'm also a panelist regularly at the Cambridge University Judge Business School Gen AI course. So they have a course for generative AI for executives. I've been invited in since the beginning of the year, and when a lot of that kind of time that we spend together is also discussing things. And often people say, and this is from just a few weeks ago when I was last there, top management, again, is putting pressure on the organization to adopt AI and agents and do stuff. Often they don't tool people properly for the tasks. So that's a major issue. They don't augment their workforce with the people who come from the industry or have the knowledge or have it implemented elsewhere. And I think they need to do that. Upskilling is a huge gap that's just not happening, especially I think in real estate, where I don't know, facilities managers are maybe trying to do stuff with AI and they just need the tools. And that was also, the comments are, but there are better systems already in place. Like, why do we need AI specifically for this? Is it just so that you can go and say that we use AI, or like, exactly. So if I rewind again 6 years and we were a consulting business, we would always ask a client, have you tried every other way? Have you tried everything else? Yeah. And if you've not, go away, try all the other ways, and then come back. And then we'll see if like AI can help you, and we can build a model for you and see if you've even got enough data.
Yeah. And I think that probably comes down from, it's a shiny big object, but then the end clients are saying, hey, what are you guys utilizing in their RFPs, for example? What AI are you utilizing? And then there's this, oh God, we need to have AI just to pass this RFP process. And so yes, people are scrambling around saying, how can we do that? Whereas actually the majority of people are still at that point in the industry. And I think I've talked about this on previous podcasts as well, is most people in commercial real estate are, let's get the data clean and in a usable place first position. And I think everyone's got to probably stop worrying so much about what other people are doing and just worry about getting their own house data in order first. Yeah. And then you can work out what processes or systems you can apply before you're looking at the really fun AI stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's in a way quite typical business transformation program that you're looking at. You go in, you figure out what problems you're trying to solve, and then you see whether an AI tool is a match for that or not. And it may always not be a match for it. I mean, we're not going to put AI back in a box. It's here to stay. So if I look back at the Cambridge Uni stuff, everybody gets a pre-course survey. And in the beginning of the year, when you looked at kind of adoption of AI tools, companies and people were at the kind of 0 or 1. Like, some people kind of tinker about with it. Some organizations, individuals use it, but the business is not yet using it, etc. Now, the program survey I looked at 2 weeks ago was companies are already using it or already have developed a proper strategy. Very few, maybe 1 or 2 were at the stage where people feel like we have a proper mature strategy and it's being implemented and we're skilled and so forth. But it's kind of moving that way. And a lot of people are daily and weekly logging into either Claude, ChatGPT, another LLM. So it's being used. But yeah, it's kind of one of those, it still needs a bit of time and guidance to be properly adopted.
Yeah, and on that, how can real estate leaders, try and get ahead of the curve and start, implementing it?
So the companies, whether real estate or not, if the CEO is a champion, it usually gets adopted and kind of prioritized, and it goes better or well in that kind of business. Where it's one of those top-down things that deal with it, and the CEO just wants to see results without using it. It doesn't go that well because it's about creating trust. A lot of people worry about their job, frankly, whether I will be replaced or not, whether they're going to reduce the workforce because we can do like 1.5x more work thanks to AI, etc. So one really huge thing is to create a culture of safety and trust that this is a normal thing to use. A friend of mine gave an example. One of the companies he works with, the CEO has a ChatGPT box open on his kind of screen all the time, and people know that he uses it daily, so they don't worry about using it. Because otherwise what they'll do is they'll take the data, use it on their private account, and all of your proprietary stuff leaks into the internet and gets absorbed into the models. So that's really relevant, is to be kind of clear around it. And if you don't know what you're doing, get help. There are consultancies out there are companies who've done it. Just get somebody to come and help you with implementing that. And a huge piece is education. And I think that's something I'm going to keep saying for a long time. Educate yourself, educate your people, tool them, augment your workforce with people from the industry, and then you can start adopting it.
And that brings me onto a point, and you've touched on it twice now, is that something where you've done this, and other people I've spoken to on this podcast as well have been from outside the industry. And it's this acceptance, it's bringing people into an industry which has typically been quite closed off, which doesn't help with us changing or moving fast, but has been closed off to outside influence. And I think now's the time, right, that we're only going to be able to learn from outside the industry, especially on this subject.
Funny one. So we have a really cool client. Actually, the first company who started using us is a mixed-use campus in Tallinn, and they needed a solution for their parking because they have nearly 2,000 spaces spread across 5 car parks. And Estonia is a place where you have sunshine all of June, maybe it's dark only 4 hours a day. In the winter, it's the opposite. It's mostly pitch black, except for 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Snow, so you can't put sensors in because snow covers them. Constant issues. So we went in and kind of helped them figure that out. And they had brought in the CEO for a big commercial real estate kind of company from the tech world, and a woman at that. So she was initially a head of innovation and then became the CEO. During her tenure, that campus grew to encompass not just offices. They have a university now. They have a daycare, an international school, a building that's dedicated for health and wellness with private clinics in there. The Tax and Customs Board relocated their headquarters there. They're moving away from cars completely. So they want to be completely car-free as a district in the next, I can't remember, 5 or 10 years. Proper ESG strategy with the data visualized to every tenant every day on screens across the office. And now, I mean, we've been working with them for 5 years because they literally took all of our MVPs and put it into place. If they were a city, they would be the 3rd largest taxpayer in the country. So there's Tallinn, there's the next town, and then it would be them. So they've been very successful because somebody with a completely different mindset's come in, looked at it and thought, no, we can innovate in a very different way. And they've put tech in from the very, very beginning.
That's really cool.
They're a really cool business.
And I think it brings me very nicely onto a little segue, which I like to talk about. And obviously you mentioned female CEO. And I know it's something which you're obviously really passionate about, is getting more women into STEM, but also into managing roles, right?
Yeah.
And so on that, how have you found commercial real estate, dare I ask, as an industry for that?
So I didn't come from a STEM background.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I'm trying to tell women, is that it's not a barrier. It could be depending on where you go, but it's not necessarily a barrier. My job is about relationship building and people. And I think women are innately very good at relationship building and with people as well. So that's kind of where I try and come from. Commercial real estate industry, like the VC industry and all sorts, is very male oriented, very male dominated. I'm just off, a US trip where we went to a bunch of conferences, and it's very, I mean, our computer vision model would get very confused there because everybody's in a dark navy suit, white, and of a specific age and height. So it's very homogenous. The industry is very homogenous. I know that there are spaces in which I wouldn't be welcome, but our head of sales is welcome into and will do really well there. And that's why I hired a man to do sales for us because that I can close deals, but I can't get into all of the spaces where I want to be in. So you just kind of make allowances for that. And you can't be angry about it. It's just the way the industry is. Maybe it will change, maybe not. I don't know. Now there are women groups kind of popping up, but globally women's rights are being rolled back. And I think it will reflect in the workplace as well. It's pretty tough. As an industry, I find in the UK, it's a lot more, I think, open and accepting. And it's a very tolerant society anyway, compared to maybe some other places. I'm originally from Estonia, a lot more parochial, tiny, Soviet Union dominated for a long time. So that's a little bit maybe different. So I feel better here, but still, obviously, there's lots of restrictions.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we're probably talking more about commercial real estate in the UK is potentially a little bit better than, say, America, or better than America, maybe in some of the.
It is better, yeah.
And some other parts of the world. So that's positive, but I think how can we improve, and what needs to change, and why?
For tech companies specifically, more women need money. So we don't need mentorship. We don't need sponsorship. We don't need events where people teach us stuff. Like, we need hard cash, and women need money. Just like men are funded for the most sometimes ridiculous ideas. By the way, a lot of femtech, so products that are oriented for women or period products or whatever, are funded or kind of operated by men. And you'd think that women would be able to raise money for that kind of stuff, but it's tough. So I actually have a T-shirt that says, "I'm the effing 1%," because only 1% of women raise money, venture capital. So if you're a solo female founder, it's very unlikely you'll raise money. It's very, very tough. If you're a mixed gender team, it's gone from about 10% to about 16% capital.
Yeah, latest stats I saw was 14%. So,
yeah. So it's gone up 2% since 2023. Yeah. And the rest of the money goes to solo male founders. And when you look at Atomico or any of the reports that come out, it all laments the same stuff. The same statistics get churned out year on year. And then you look at the portfolios, and I have manually Googled through a bunch of these portfolios for European VC firms, and they don't put their money where their mouth is, and they absolutely overwhelmingly finance only male teams and kind of male founders. And it's just really sad. But that means more women need to be making the decisions. There's not enough partners at venture capital firms. And if you're an LP, limited partner, and you put money into a venture fund, you need to hold that venture fund accountable for making sure that the funnel they're getting is more equalized, so that the investments go both to men and women. Because we know that women bring back more money per dollar invested than men. And that could be just because the barrier for us is so high that only the real top ones get across it. And then, of course, you're better. Also, women do usually more funding cycles because we raise less money. We need to raise more. You need to go through more cycles, which means you dilute yourself more, which means your exit is not going to be as great. So there's so many systemic kind of trips in there. It needs to be, I think, addressed from a regulatory and culture point, but also VCs need to look at the funnel that they're bringing in and have just more female partners. That's really, really relevant for tech businesses.
And is that what leads to the bias, or is there other things which you can think of which are causing that bias towards an 85% bias towards male?
And so some of the research that kind of comes out shows that when you show people identical portfolios or identical companies, one's led by a man, one's led by a woman, a male committee would prefer the male, and it's kind of. Because that's what we know, that's the spaces that we move in, that's kind of where we grow up. Even in commercial real estate, like golf days are a big thing, right? At MIPIM, every year there's a group that does a cigar and a whiskey thing, which is like, obviously quite male thing to do.
I hate both.
Sorry?
I hate both, just to be fair.
Yeah, I don't smoke and I don't drink. So it's one of those ones where if those spaces scream male, then why would I go and attend? And then I don't even cultivate a network where I should be. Or if I do show up, I'm usually one of two people who turned up who are women. So I think that spaces need to change a little bit for that.
Yeah.
It's ultimately, we will fund what we know. Our networks are very often gendered. Men will hang out more with men, women will often hang out more with women. It sounds really odd to kind of say this out loud, but yeah, there's so much research around that.
Yeah. And I know you said about the mentorship and all that. That's don't need that, need money. What about allyship?
Allyship is great. Absolutely, that's great. But allyship also would mean you going, pushing for women to get the financing, to get the contracts, to get the introductions, and to be in the spaces where those deal makers are and the check signers are. Like, that's allyship. Yeah. Not just saying, let's post with Karen and do a LinkedIn post and do a hashtag allyship. That's not allyship.
No. It's a really tricky position, right? Because I'm kind of everything we're talking everything bad we're talking about, right? And also it's something which...
It's not your fault.
Exactly, but it is something as well, because in the sense that I talk about this with my wife and whatnot, we also have this problem as well, that men are also more likely to put their hands up for something and say that they can do something when they can't as well. And they're more willing to kind of... Not willing, they're ready to fluff it. Whereas women will be more measured about kind of how much experience they have and take that into consideration more than most men are like, yeah, I can do it. If they got like 10% of the knowledge and they think they can back for the 90, whereas women are like, I need to have 80% of the knowledge in order to get that role, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think some of that is cultural as well. So if I look at, again, when you look at kind of research and you take a group of men and a group of women, then there's bigger differences between the extremes of the men and women within the men within that group than between the two groups. So if you just take men and then one end of the spectrum and the other one, that's a really big gap.
Yeah.
And the average man and the average woman, like, the gap is actually not that huge. Also culturally, if you look into the US and some of the crazy high profile criminal cases we've recently had with female founders who have taken risks, like the Bad Blood one, for example, Theranos. There's another woman that was just recently sentenced to jail for fabricating clients that they never had. So there are women who do that kind of stuff. We usually get punished more for that. So if you look at even Adam Neumann, who, I mean, I've read the book and the articles and seen the dramatization of it. I'm shocked that he still gets money and gets funded after WeWork, cashed out in the tune of hundreds of millions, disappears for 2 years and comes back on the scene. So women, I don't think, would ever be allowed that kind of leeway.
No.
And also we're, again, culturally depends, right? I was raised in a farm. So again, culturally, Eastern Europe is different from the UK and then from the US and maybe from Spain. So I think a lot of the gender roles we carry and embody obviously come from childhood and the culture that we're raised with. So if you're so girls are commended for being quiet and compliant and having neat handwriting. And then, the whole boys will be boys thing. I think we're more aware of it. Yeah. Definitely more aware of it, which hopefully will help. But yeah, the way I was raised and the way I'm trying to raise my kids is very, very different. Yeah, very different. Because I was the one that had to mop the floors and do dusting and that kind of stuff. And my brother was never subjected to any sort of domestic cleaning tasks. And I found that really unfair.
It is unfair.
It is unfair, but it was just the way that boys just didn't do that. So I think culturally that's a more of an Eastern European thing than would have been the case here.
So moving on, probably back into the AI world, we obviously talk about AI and, commercial real estate being slow adopters. Why do you really think we have lagged behind the other sectors so much? What is it about commercial real estate which causes that lag?
I think commercial real estate specifically has been very... it's just a slow process to build a building. Just to put a building up, it could take decades to get through the planning permission and however many different design iterations you will have done by then point, and then build it. And you could run out of money halfway through that. So there's so much risk in every single step. Returns can be completely eaten up by the end of that cycle. So it's very natural to be so conservative when you're investing and putting to use tens of millions of investor money, and it has to play out. It's not like in a startup where you're just taking a bet, right? So I think that's one of those things where it's just, when you're a guardian of money, you don't run after every new tech innovation that's probably out there. So especially hard for a startup would be to sell into a business like that, because if you've not been around for long enough, you're just not trusted. Like, will you still be here when the building's up and operational? So, and I think it's a very fair question. The other thing is probably just, you need to sell square foot or square meter, and everything else trickles down from that. So unless there's a very, very clear and immediate ROI, it's very difficult to adopt a tech solution like, so what, it's AI. I think that's a really fair question. And more companies are now questioning the so what aspect. So again, with the Cambridge core stuff, in the beginning of the year, it was more a cool, gimmicky marketing text, cover letters, speeches. Now it's the, okay, but so what? Like, we have 50 licenses for whatever tool we use. What's the actual value of it? Like, where can we really innovate with it?
Yeah, I do find that quite interesting part of commercial real estate as well, which obviously I'm involved in with iBosses. And from being in different parts of the sector myself and being involved in very different sectors of commercial real estate has surprised me just how focused prop tech is on ROI. As in, people don't look at ROI in the same way at other parts of commercial real estate, like they insist on looking at prop tech as what's your ROI? That's a question which doesn't get asked of really in other parts of commercial real estate to the same extent, which I think is really quite fascinating. I think why are we so obsessed with this ROI on prop tech, but not obsessed about it in terms of maybe an FM solution or something else,
I think it's prop tech's new. Like, it's a pretty new field, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit of distrust maybe there. It's an easy question to ask. I think it's just an easy question to ask to then be able to go and justify that somewhere. And now fundamentally, the whole thing comes down to cost. Who's going to pay for it? Yeah. Is it coming out of the service charge? Am I going to pass it on to somebody? Who am I going to pass it on to? I want to look good in front of the investors, the board, the stakeholders, the shareholders. And if we blow the operational budget out of whatever proportion, then I'm going to look bad. So, but if I can go and say every penny you put in brings 2.5 back, going to be amazing. So I think it's just the reduction of debate and purchasing decisions to a couple of very, very basic checkpoints.
So closing up, I've got two questions which I tend to like to ask my guests. The first one is big picture, looking at commercial real estate. What needs to change and why?
I think we covered it a little bit as well, which is, I think, reskilling people, upskilling people, and augmenting your workforce with people who come from a technology background, because it will be touched by tech and it will be touched by AI, and it's better to have people in your organization helping it get ready to properly kind of adopt it. So I think commercial real estate will move on from simple LLM queries to help their marketing brochures, and will really start adopting it. There probably will be a couple of, not a couple, but I think there might be mid-market developers, asset managers who can kind of tear ahead from the rest because they're more agile. And it's not turning around such a big ship, and that will give them a proper competitive advantage over others. So I think that the landscape might change a little bit.
Nice. And then looking at commercial real estate, do you think it needs to evolve or revolutionize in its approach?
To AI, you mean, or
everything?
Everything.
Everything. Let's look at the whole of commercial real estate. Should we evolve? Are we going to evolve, or should we revolutionize?
I think, So in the UK, It's hard. I think it's hard to revolutionize in a country that's never had a revolution. So it needs to definitely evolve to catch up with things. And I think there's big regional disparities on offering. So when you go to Scotland, for example, and you come down to London, even buildings obviously look different. They're differently used. But to really attract talent, like legit good talent from a wide range of ages and industry experiences, it needs to seriously step up and evolutionize, or whatever the word is, evolutionize, like revolutionize and evolve together. But yeah, I'm just thinking back to Blueprint a couple of weeks ago in Vegas and the Venetian, and yeah, there are women there. There's always a women's dinner that kind of takes place, but it's boring to listen to the same script year in, year out that says, let's get more women involved and more tech involved, and, just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
So actually, Ben Cross, a previous guest which I had on, he called it lots of mini revolutions.
It's a mini revolution.
Lots of mini revolutions to evolve. It kind of sounds like a similar sort of viewpoint, really.
Yeah.
Revolutionize little parts of the sectors to get a bigger solution across the whole.
Yeah.
So no, thank you so much for coming on today.
No, thank you, James. It's great.
Really good to have you on. Really, amazing topics which we got on, and I think your passion, your insight into AI and everything else around commercial real estate is really clear to see. It's been really refreshing to hear as well. And I think one of the big things about this podcast is one thing which I always hope is that there's going to be some good value, some takeaways for people listening in here. And I think people really need to listen to this episode. There's going to be a lot of value for people to take away to understand how we can improve as an industry and really move forward, both in terms of the social demographic side of things, but also in AI and technology as well. So I really appreciate all your insights and information on that.
Thank you so much. No, thanks for having me.
Thank you.